This is an update from the Home Builders and Remodelers Association of Connecticut, the state president, Eric Santini, and president-elect David Kreckert. Eric has designed, built, and developed nearly 500 apartment units in Vernon and Ellington and is the property manager for Santini Living's 450 apartments in Ellington. In October 2019, Santini Living won the Family Business Award, Small Business of the Year in the category for businesses with fewer than 25 employees by the Hartford Business Journal. David is the owner and hands-on leader of the Advanced Group LLC, one of the leading general contractors in southeastern Connecticut. He immigrated to the United States at the age of 20 and speaks 5 languages. David has been in business since 2000 and resides in Waterford. Let's give a big round of applause and find out what the builders are up to.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Yeah. So I am Eric Santini. Many of you probably know the guy next to me already, but I'm building in the Talon County area. I'm a second generation builder. We've been in business for 50 years. I took over, my brother and I sort of taken over from our father, who immigrated from Italy when he was about the same age David came over to the United States. About maybe 17. So we've done a lot of custom homes over the years, but primarily we've been doing a lot of multifamily. Actually, we've done over 1,000 units, and we've got a big project coming up in Tallinn next year that we're getting. So I'll just kind of give you a brief overview of what I see in the industry, and I'll let David, especially you'll have more of the remodeler's perspective. On the real estate market, as far as that's concerned, still in our area of the state, it's still pretty strong. You are seeing open houses again, which you didn't see, maybe 3 months ago. You wouldn't even see an open house; it would just go right to sale, or right under contract. But you are starting to see things stay on the market for a little longer, but it's still pretty strong market. Unfortunately for builders, there's we've got a lot of headwinds we're dealing with. Number one, obviously, are the costs. The costs are absolutely astronomical. I don't know if any of you have, done any remodeling on your homes or had a relative build a house or you built a house yourself, but the numbers are fairly shocking. I give you a couple of examples. Garage doors. Garage doors are something that, typically a builder would see a 2 or 3% increase every year and probably fight it out with their supplier to get it down to 1.5%. Well, they went up 60% since last year. 60%. Insulation, 30%. Cabinets, 20-something%. Siding. And on top of it, you're looking at some extremely long lead times. I'll go back to garage doors. 7 months. For a garage door. That's for a standard garage door without glass, with nothing fancy. That's the run-of-the-mill stuff. You're seeing houses that are being closed. I'm sure it's happening down here, but in our area, they have plywood up for their garage doors because they haven't got the garage doors yet. So we're still dealing with a lot of supply chain issues. Some materials are getting a little bit better. It's not happening as fast as we'd like, and the cost increases are still coming. So builders, despite the sort of very hot market, and despite the fact that they have, a backlog of customers, their profit margins haven't been able to keep up with the increase in costs. So builders are actually not doing as well as anyone would think. It's been some thin margins, and a build that takes 6-7 months, maybe 3 years ago, is going to take a year now. The other big issue we have outside of material and the supply chain issues is, of course, labor. Now, labor issue for the home building industry has been there for long before the pandemic started. We have one of the oldest in Connecticut. We have one of the oldest construction workforce in the country. Many of you probably know plumbers, electricians, HVAC techs, framers. I guarantee most of the ones you know are probably at least in their 40s, if not older, and that's a problem. Our vocational schools, our technical schools, certainly our public high schools, we're not coming out with enough talent into our industry. And that's really kind of hurt us. Labor is really a limiting factor for builders. And it's obviously a big cost driver. Unfortunately, even when the supply chain comes back into line, prices start maybe coming down a little bit, back to a little more reality like lumber has. Labor issue is still going to be there. That's a long-term issue. The Home Builder Association, as an association, we have dedicated ourselves to improving, trying to do what we can to improve the labor situation. We have a Home Builders Institute curriculum, which is a nationally renowned program, where we actually got that just within the last couple of months. We just got that accepted into public schools in Connecticut. So Stonington High, which is right in your backyard, as the first school to take on this core path program, which is actually going to introduce kids to the construction trade. Essentially, it's bringing shop class back. And a lot of these schools have not seen it. So Stonington, if I had to guess which school would be number one to do this, Stonington would probably be one of my last choices. I would have expected it. So that means that it can happen anywhere. And the goal is to really spread this. So that's really our focus as an association. As far as where I see the market going, I think, unfortunately, I do think we're headed for a recession. I just do. Obviously, I don't have to tell you guys, mortgage rates have cooled things down a little bit, I'm sure, for many of you. And I think we just had an overinflated market. You had such high demand. When you see houses, 40 people showing up at an open house on day one being on the market, you know that something's probably, a little overheated. And along with all the other economic factors that are out there, including the Ukraine war and persistent inflation, I do think we see some rocky roads. Our National Association of Home Builders, our economist, is predicting a moderate recession. That he does not think it's going to be a long-term one like 2008, thankfully, but he does think it'll be a fighting one. So that's another thing that, as an industry, our industry will have to contend with, and of course, you guys will too. And with that, I'll hand it over to David.
Good afternoon, everyone. I really have nothing to say. Eric said it all. Well, in my book, right about this time, 5 o'clock is a happy hour, so happy hour. So I'm sure you guys have a really long day, and Susie and every one of you guys, thank you for having us. So as Eric said, Dustin Maurice is here, the President of Home Builders Association for Eastern Connecticut. So, Eric touched a lot of things that, they're critical. So, for years, when I was the President of Home Builders Association, Susie and I have stayed always in touch, and I'm flipping a page to the relationship between the builders and the realtors, just to kind of open a little bit more doors in that aspect. But Susie and I have worked in the past to where the builders kind of collaborate with the realtors and vice versa. So, being a little bit more on the state level, as the upcoming president, I have to travel from anywhere between, Fairfield to Eastern, but state is really divided in 3 portions, at least in my book. We have Fairfield County, we have Central, and we have Eastern. Okay, so 3 different markets. Okay, guys. So and if you go in Fairfield County, this year happened to be the judge for Home Builders Association. So if you see a $9 million home, don't be surprised. So that's just an average price down in Fairfield, and I'm sure you guys know that. So we've been blessed, at least in Eastern Connecticut part of it, because anything, you don't see a $10 million home, and maybe you do, but probably it's one in a blue moon. So the average probably price, you guys will tell me more, is between $300,000 to $700,000, which a lot of people out of state are coming and buying, so that's what's keeping the wheels rolling. But where the Home Builders Association come to really kind of keeps this cost down that, and you don't see this, that we do elaborate, and in many cases that we, as a Home Builders Association, we provided capital to keep, some of you guys know or don't know, but, and they wanted to put a sprinkler system in, 2 families or even in single families, which that would increase the price of every single home that we build, pre-existing, you doing a renovation. So to keep the cost down as a Home Builders Association, indirectly, we add value to the homes to keep this within a certain budget in a certain market. So, you know, there is a lot more that we do to, you know, keep the home building industry in general. When I say home building industry, indirectly you guys are selling and buying, or buyers and sellers. So we do really add to this portfolio a lot, and you know, I'm just trying to keep it in a positive note because Eric said all the negative things. But that's all I have as far as that goes. So I mean, it's unavoidable that you know, the recession is coming in our way, and you know, like Eric said, you know, you see a lot more signs in the, you know, everywhere around. So we just got to keep on pushing every day. So we're open for any questions.
Yeah, questions. Ron, then John.
Do you find more of the builders waiting until the house is mostly completed before they put the price on it and bring it to market?
So I can speak for my area and a lot of the builders that I talk to. No, it seems like everything's got a buyer at this point. The backlog is so, I mean, builders are actually turning business away. So it's hard to even start building a house without getting offers on it, whether it's on the market or not. We're underbuilt. We really are, which is kind of weird when you consider that we've got a recession coming. But we're underbuilt.
So are they aggressively pricing it with the expectation that the cost of materials are going to go up X percentage between now and the next 6 months?
Well, here's the problem. Yes, you have to put in that into your budget, but the problem is you still have to compete with the resale market. So that gives you a considerable speed bump. You know, and it's hard. The average I mean, there's a lot of benefits, and I'll be positive here, David. There's a lot of benefits to new construction and to remodeling your home. I mean, you know, you're going to be much more energy efficient. You're going to defer maintenance for 10 years plus. Materials are much more resilient than they've ever been. But at the same time, does the average buyer understand that? Or are they looking at, well, I could build a 3,500 square foot house with you for $1 million, but there's a resale for 800. Maybe and they don't know what it's going to cost to renovate, but maybe I'll put 50,000 in, and I'll be better off just doing that. So you really are kind of limited as a builder. There are limits. You're not just going to be able to just keep putting margin on there.
Thank you, John.
Does your organization have lobbyists that could lobby the state to encourage these state tech schools to have construction courses and try to get a pipeline of carpenters?
So that is a tremendous question. Thank you for asking it. So the association that I'm the president of, the Home Builder Association, David will soon be the new president in 3 months. Basically, our main purpose is lobbying at the Capitol. So we're at the Capitol fighting everything that kind of hurls challenges at us, including electrification of all heating systems and hot water systems. That was a big battle this year. That will be coming. So yes, we do have lobbyists. As far as the labor situation, we actually we're going to apply for ARP funds to start our own academy that would actually train framers, HVAC technicians, electricians, and the money ran out. We had our application ready. We were getting it ready. We were going to have it in by the deadline, which was August, and got a call from the state that the ARP funds were spent. So we are looking at, that doesn't mean that we're going to stop trying. There's other grants out there. The state has seen some, unbelievably, we've had a couple of big surplus years, so there may be some money out there to look at, and we're not going to stop that. Because that's really the biggest issue with new construction.
I'll also add to that, John, on October 12th at the Norwich and Spa, the Realtors and Builders are doing a joint legislative meeting, and we will have Cindy Butts from CT Realtors talking about our legislative issues, and then Jim Paris, is that his name?
Jim Paris.
Jim Paris is the state CEO for the builders, and he will provide the legislative update for the builders. Jen?
I have 2 questions. One,
finding that when you're getting through the building process, that you're running into the houses then not appraising, and then buyers can't get the loan? And then the second question is, how do you sit with the buyer and explain to them how much the house is going to cost and still protect yourself? Are there waivers involved? Are there things that, what is the expectations of what they can expect going through the process?
Ryan's just my neighbor.
Any appraisals in the house? No. Good.
I'm from my area, so my area might be a little different down here. Other town counties a little different. But I have not heard a lot, believe it or not, I have not heard a lot of appraisal lenders of other area. Just because it's so frothy that it's easy to find comps because they're just all there all the time. I forgot what your second question was.
You know, if I come to you as a buyer,
Yep.
how are you going to explain to me how much this house costs and still protect yourself? I heard some builders were using like waivers or different things.
Oh, like escalation
Okay,
costs?
escalation.
I have heard a couple builders do that. I think that's a bit of a double-edged sword. As a builder, you know, certainly you've got to protect yourself. At the same time, you know, having a client that you're building for, that's in a way, it's a partnership. And if you start off with that, it's a little bit, you know, I think you're starting off maybe on the wrong foot. Now, I have heard, we have not done that, but I have heard builders do that, and I've heard very, very mixed results. And I'm hearing less and less about that. You know, but it's hard not to do it because the building process is 9-10 months, and it's not like it was 3 or 4 years ago where you can lock in your prices and know that they're going to be there when you buy it, because it can change without any notice. I mean, sometimes your suppliers don't even know until the day they get it. So it's a challenge. You know, I can't speak for other areas of the state, but in our area, I have not. I've heard a lot of builders starting back off on that.
Way back in the back.
Question. So in our area of the state, the southeastern Connecticut, do you know if there is in the works or being pushed building for affordable housing such as townhomes or condos by developments?
So another thing, and if you go to this legislative breakfast, I'm sure that'll be a big topic on October 12th. I'll be there. Affordable housing is a huge push for legislators in our state, and it's actually something we, as an association, we've been pushing too. The problem is in Connecticut, it's always been 169 towns, and they want to do their own thing, and you can't tell me what to do, and that's really the political battle. I know the southeast part of Connecticut, I mean, you've got potential for tremendous job growth down here with what's going on with the subways and electric boat. And you don't have enough housing, so that's you know, and that's what we're really, that's why we have a lobbyist in house. These are the things that we want to really convey to the legislators. Like, you know, you've got yourself a problem, and you've got to get these municipalities on board. The municipalities are usually the biggest obstacle to this. You know, the other obstacle for affordable housing is infrastructure. So really the best way to achieve affordable housing, and this is my humble opinion, is through multifamily. You need to have the density. But if you don't have the infrastructure, if you don't have the sewer, and you don't have the water, it's very hard. And if in Connecticut, if you look at Connecticut, you got 91, 84, 90, that's where all the infrastructure is. Go outside of those areas, and there's very little. And that's really limited. It's really limited. It's very hard on a 25 lot subdivision to get 5 affordable housing at a 30 to 60%, you know, income level. It's very hard to accomplish that.
Two-part on that question. So not so much the income based, but as in somebody, let's say, who's just graduating with an engineering degree, making $75,000 a year, and you know, can afford a condo or can afford a townhome as a starter home or a young family. Like that kind of stuff. Is that going to be, or is it the same issue that we're talking about?
And that's the missing middle housing, I think, that you're talking about now.
That's the
And that's another issue. It is also limited a bit by infrastructure. Actually, that's our bread and butter. We build multifamily rentals that we own, and most of what we built in the last decade or so has been townhomes. So these are nicer apartments that are actual townhomes that a kid, graduating with an engineering degree out of UConn can afford, and get into town and hopefully eventually buy a house in that town. And so that is also limited by infrastructure and zoning. And towns have to realize that you need to have that housing mix. That you can't. I think it's very difficult when you have a town that's zoned for the 1 acre lot, and that's really it. And then when the building gets too hot, they want to go to 1.5 or 2, because that just speaks, that just goes against affordability. The other issue with affordability, and the other side of the legislature in the same party, what you'll see is the energy side. So they want to push more energy efficiency, full electrification of homes, which also adds a cost to that home, which also fights affordability too. So there's some factors there. But yes, our housing stock is old, as you guys all know, and I don't think we've really done a great job as a state of keeping up with the times and lifestyles.
David, I'm going to direct this question to you because I'm really trying to pinpoint and get somebody to tell me how much it costs per square foot to build. On renovation, what was it pre-COVID, and give us a ballpark, what is it now?
It's such a tough question, Susie, because every 10 calls we get 9.5 of them. What's the price per square foot? So I think we all are educating our buyers or our clients in the wrong direction, because some people like just a custom kitchen, some people do like just a basic kitchen. So it's not really a price per square foot. It's at that point it becomes special and not so much. So and a lot of people do know that renovation, it is a lot more than building new. The reason being, a lot of people have a hard time understanding that. Well, you just take in a wall and put in a new wall there. Well, if it's new, you just put in 2x4s and put it in the wall. So this is just rough numbers, but pre-COVID, it was easy enough to save about 175, 225 per square foot in a renovation. Now we're probably 285, 300 in a renovation. So brand new home build. And again, this has to do a lot with custom and where it's located and so on and forth. But you're starting at $350 per square foot. And I just want to touch base what Eric is bringing. And I just said in the beginning, state is divided in 3 sections. Okay, we got Fairfield, Central, and Eastern. So unfortunately, I say this unfortunately, neither one of them. It's replica to one another. What they build in Fairfield County, they don't build in Central, okay? And what they build in Central, we don't build here. If you go in New Haven, okay, just go in and housing shortage, right? If you go in New Haven, they're building all these modern, apartments there with the luxury of, rooftops and so on and forth. You tell me one condo or one project is being built to that effect. We're just building houses. That's going back to the dated houses here, right? So we got to bring tomorrow's houses today. So we really have to be a little bit more open-minded than that.
Ron?
When I'm going to say CCOG, and I probably have the wrong initials together, but they were talking about workforce housing.
Yep.
And yesterday it was affordable housing. And we had a state rep saying that problems in her town, people understanding. Why not go back to workforce housing, where we're just building houses for the people that are working and get that in the town people's mind.
Yeah, so workforce housing typically is defined at about 80% of AMI versus the 30 and 60% levels that you see in more affordable housing. That's a lot more achievable. You still need the density, even if you're doing detached. You need to have some cluster zoning. And once again, a lot of these towns haven't touched their zoning regs. They've got their town zone for the 1 acre, 1.5 acre, 2 acre lots. So you still need some more density. You may have to, you might need to go down to a 1/2 acre, 1/4 acre lot to achieve that. But certainly the workforce housing at that 80%, that is a much easier to achieve, and especially for a small town that can't take the big density because they don't have the infrastructure.
All right, I'm gonna shift it. It might be the last question, but, and either one of you can ask it, but, the realtors have their own version of what home buyers and sellers are really interested in, but what do the builders say? What are people asking for? What are the trends? Do they still like white kitchens, still like open space? What's happening?
At this point, I can tell you from the apartments that we built and we have, they want anything they can find. I've never, it's non-sustainable. It's, since basically June of 2020, it has been a scramble to find anything. Our vacancy rates are, I'm talking about throughout the state of Connecticut, they're like in the high 90s. I mean, the occupancy rates are in the high 90s. There is nothing. There's nothing available, and there's not a lot coming on the market, and certainly not coming fast enough. So I would say that's, but as far as what you find inside, obviously the open concept is still, we're finding that's extremely popular. That's the biggest thing. Having obviously, with a lot of people now spending a lot more time working from home than they used to pre-pandemic, they want the office space. That's really, really important. If you've got a couple, they want 2 office spaces. So those are the big things I'm seeing. David?
I think you said it all, but this one I'm speaking for myself, okay? So if you go, I keep bringing Fairfield, and my apologies, okay? I'm just making some comparison being in Eastern. So all of our clients are seeing a champagne taste in Fairfield County, right? And they're drinking it there, and they're bringing the same taste here, and we'll see, I want that modern kitchen. Well, that's gonna cost you $200,000. $200,000, are you crazy? Well, mind you, in Fairfield, they're paying $500,000. So they can get away with that. So they're looking for a higher upgrade for less money, at least what I see with my company and a few people that I talk to. So they're being a little bit more asking as far as that goes.
Marilyn?
I have a question for Eric. Did you say you're building condos and townhouses and you keep them to rent? Do you
Yes.
build for sale? Do you build them to sell them?
We do not. No. So our model is a lot different than most multifamily builders. We build to own, so we build it at a different level because we wanted to. We're not making our money flipping it in 5 years. We're holding it for the long run, so we put a little more into it. But I would say the demand for that is it's almost unlimited, especially if you can get first floor masters into the situation with an aging population.
I have a piece of land for you. You want to build in London County?
Jamie had a question over here, and then one more question over here, and then we're gonna have to wrap it up.
How much emphasis are you seeing, this would be more for David, for the smart home features, particularly maybe in the kitchen, but just in general, there's so much talk about it in webinars and national speakers that we're listening to, and I want to know how much you're seeing that right here in southeastern Connecticut.
And is that bringing a lot of value to the house?
Yeah.
Well, again, a lot of people with internet today and social media, it's endless what you can really put in your house or what you see. So the desire is so much bigger. Like the open concept, as Eric says, it is a huge feature. Indoor and outdoor, as much as open and doors and windows, that's also a feature. So until they get to the budget, the house would want to walk in their wheels, or and their feet and going from one place to another. But then you give them the budget, then they start downsizing. So.
But on the smart feature, anything standard,
Not really, like flooring, kitchens, like those are the lighting and all that, nothing really out of order as far as that goes. No. Not that we see, at least.
The high-end appliances with all the computer controls that are controllable from anywhere in the world.
There are very little in between those people that really do ask. And I am not sure that, some of the clients that we have here, they live in Fairfield County. And they just want a basic home here, but they're lavish, a house in Fairfield is like 5 times bigger and 20 times more expensive, but they don't want to reapply that in Eastern Connecticut.
All right, well, this was very informative. Let's give a hand for David.